What's up, guys? It's MTGMatt for you, and today we've got 21 new cards from Ikoria, Lair of Behemoths. So let's start out with a juicy one, and that is the Ozolith, a 1-mana legendary artifact, which says whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield, if it had counters on it, put those counters on the Ozolith. And then at the beginning of combat on your turn, if the Ozolith has counters on it, you may move all counters from the Ozolith onto target creature. Now, the first thing I want to mention about this card is about the first part. It says when a creature leaves the battlefield, it doesn't say that a creature needs to enter the graveyard, which means that this effect works both if your creatures get destroyed or exiled, which I think is really important, that this also works if your creatures are getting exiled, because this makes this much more reliable and much more powerful. And then the actual effect. So what does this artifact do? Basically, it stores all your counters that creatures have on them on this Ozolith, and then you can redistribute them. And as Ikoria has famously branded itself with having all these different counters, so of course you have your usual +1/+1 counters, but then we are going to have counters for basically every basic keyword like flying, vigilance, manage, lifelink, hexproof, and so on, right? Now, a lot of the times strategies where you rely on counters being put on your creatures, the problem with those strategies is that you can grow a creature very large, which is great from an early stage on in the game. However, if the creature gets removed, or what I haven't even thought about it so far, if it gets bounced back to your hand, this also means that it leaves the battlefield. So in this case, the Ozolith would also work. So if that happens, the value has built up over time with all these counters usually is gone. But with the Ozolith, you can solve that problem. And the fact that this is at 1 mana, so it's extremely cheap, I think makes it very likely to incorporate this in such deck types. And I think this is actually it's a card which in the right deck is going to give you a lot of value over time, and also a card where I think it's hard to realize how good this card is until you've tried it out. We can go through simple scenarios where you have your Johnny's Pride Maid with already 3-4 counters. It dies, you have 4+1/+1 counters on the Ozolith. Then you put down a creature, and boom, at the beginning of combat, it has +4+1/+1 counters again, right? And this is just for +1/+1 counters. Go with keywords and everything. And given the fact that we've already seen a lot of creatures that give other creatures keywords, or just any cards that give creatures keywords, I think the Ozolith is a really cool card. You should definitely watch out for that. It's I think one of my favorite cards so far in the expansion, and that's why I'm going to give this 4 stars. I think this is an excellent card, and I'm looking forward to trying this out. Next up we've got Zenith Flare, an instant in Boros colors for 4 mana, and deals X damage to any target and you gain X life, where X is the number of cards with a cycling ability in your graveyard. Now, I think a nice way to evaluate this card is to ask yourself, at what amount of X would I be satisfied casting this card? So I think you can be really satisfied casting this card if you pay the 4 mana and X equals 5. So in this case, we would deal 5 damage and gain 5 life for 4 mana at instant speed, which I think is very good. That being said, I'm not convinced that in a deck where you want to play this cycling theme, if there are not better cards to play at 4 mana, or better cards to put into your deck at 4 mana, I think this card is also very dependent on how far you've progressed in the game. Let's say you have this in your opening hand, and it's turn 4, the first time you can play this. I think at best this card, like usually, is going to be like give you 4 damage, gain 4 life, which is not bad at 4 mana. But then again, if you're playing this card, you play white, which means you have so much better removal options. So I don't think this card is going to see play. I don't really like it, and I'm almost tempted to give this a 1-star rating, because I don't think this is going to see any play at all. On the upside, you have to say it deals damage to any target, right? Not only creatures or planeswalkers. So for that reason, I'm going to give this 2 stars, but I don't think it's going to see a lot of play. Next up, we have Bushmeat Poacher, 4 mana 2/4 human soldier in black. And you can pay a generic 1 mana, tap the creature, and sacrifice another creature to gain the creature's toughness in life and draw a card. What I want to note here, aside from this card, is that this expansion gives a lot of black human cards, whereas usually humans would be in the white color pie, which gives you more options. Just want to note it quickly. This is another one. That being said, I wouldn't say this is a pure pack filler. Like the effect, gain life, draw a card for a mana, although you have to sacrifice a creature, is not bad at all. But it's at 4 mana, and that's why it's too clunky, I would say. So I would give this 1 star, maybe in the direction of 2 stars, but I would say this is a 1-star card. Or is it? Maybe it's 2 stars. Next up we got Sanctuary Smasher, 6 mana, 6/4 Rhino Beast with first strike. You can cycle it for 3 mana, and when you do, you put a first strike counter on entire creature you control. Now, as we've talked about the Ozolith in the beginning, this is an example of how you can put specific keyword counters on creatures which would be stored in the Ozolith. Now, a 6 mana 6/4 4 strike, would you play this? I think like 6 mana you can play better stuff. However, would you just play this as cycle, give a first strike counter? I don't know, you could play this as a combat trick. And if you have cycle synergies, you get additional value. But I really doubt it. The only reason I am going to give this 2 stars is because it has cycling on it, and I think that cycling could be a nice deck archetype. And for that reason, I wouldn't write off cards with cycling immediately, so I give this 2 stars. Next up, we've got Keensight Mentor, 3 mana 1/4 human cleric. And when it enters the battlefield, you put a vigilance count on target non-human creature you control. And then you can pay 2 and tap the creature to put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control with vigilance. When I saw this card, what came to mind immediately was that we have the Ajani Planeswalker right now in standard at 4 mana, which gives all your creatures vigilance passively, and also plus +1/+1 counters on your creatures. So that's a nice little combo I was thinking about, where you can give your creatures vigilance and then enable this cleric to put +1/+1 counters on all your creatures. This card, I think I'm going to give this 3 stars because of the following reasons. There seems to be an archetype or a deck pushed by this expansion, where you want to combine humans with non-human creatures in one deck. And then again, as we're going to see later, there also seem to be these clerics, which give +1/+1 counters to all creatures if they have a certain keyword. And given that we haven't seen the whole expansion yet, maybe there's enough support that this could work, or maybe there are going to be enough creatures that just have vigilance by themselves, because While a 3 mana 1/4 is not exciting, you get a vigilance counter on a creature, but more importantly, the ability to give, in theory, all your creatures +1/+1 counters for 2 mana is really, really good, given that they have all the specific keyword. So, I go ahead and give this between 2 to 3 stars, just because I would be cautious to look out if there would be more support for these kinds of cards, because if there is more support, I can see a white-black aggressive deck, which is based on keywords, or maybe a mono-white deck. So this could be interesting. For the moment, I would give this 2 stars, but looking out what more the expansion has to offer, maybe this could move into a 3-star range. Next up, we've got Alert Heedbonder, a 3 mana 2/4 in Selesnya colors with Vigilance. And at the beginning of your end step, you gain 1 life for each creature you control with Vigilance. So here there's more support for like building decks around certain keywords. In this case, as upside, you get life. Is that nice? Now, the only way I could see this be a real benefit is with Heliot, where you put +1/+1 counters on creatures when they gain life. That being said, you gain all this life in one instance, so it just would be an additional +1/+1 counter. So the gaining life is nice, but I think in most cases this just would be a 3 mana 2/4 vigilance. And if you want, I think if you want vigilance synergies, then there are better options. However, if there won't be better options, I still won't think that you would pick this card. So I don't think it's complete garbage. So I go ahead and give this 2 stars. Next up, we've got Garrison Cat, 1 mana 1/1 in white. When it dies, you get a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. 4 stars. A very simple creature, but as we've seen with Hunted Witness, which is also a 1 mana 1/1, that gives you a soldier token when it dies. These kind of cards seem to be working really well. You can use this card, for example, in like Ores of Sacrifice decks. This is where I could see this work. Or in Selesnya decks, White Weenie, and so on. So it's really nice to have more of these cards in the standard pool, because then you have even more options to generate small tokens from additional creatures, and in the right deck that can be really beneficial. So I'll give this 4 stars. Next up, we've got Spontaneous Flight, 3 mana instant in white. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn, and you put a flying counter on it. So I would look at this card this way. It's an instant, so you can use it as a combat trick. But then again, since it's giving flying, you can avoid that your creature is getting blocked in the first place. And is 3 mana worth it? Like giving a creature permanent flying and +2/+2 for 1 turn? I don't really think so, especially in white. You have better options at 3 mana. For example, you could play what's it called? The 3 mana instant. Is it called? No, something with formation. The 3 mana instant, which gives all the creatures indestructible. And if you cast it during your main phase, they also get +1/+1 counters and vigilance. So I don't think this card is going to see play. It's too expensive for what it does, and you just have better options. So I'll go ahead and give this 1 star, because even with the flying counter stuff, yeah, I think there are probably better ways to get flying counters. So I give this 1 star. I don't think it's going to see play. Oh, actually that's wrong here. I'm sorry, we already had that. Let me actually look up for a moment if I have forgotten about a card here. I think I forgot about this card, yeah. So, next up we got Majestic Auricorn. 5 mana 4 Unicorn with Mutate 4 and Vigilance. And whenever this creature mutates, you gain 4 life. I think it's simply too expensive. I don't see this going to see play. Also, the mutate ability is not really relevant. And in general, it's a 5 mana 4/4 apart from the mutate ability. So, I mean, 4 life is quite a lot if you mutate a lot on a creature. But I don't think it's going to see play, so I give this 1 star. That being said, it has mutate. Again, we don't know yet how powerful mutate is going to be. So I'll be a little bit generous here. I give this 2 stars actually. Next up we got Splendor Mare, 3 mana 3/3 Elk Unicorn with lifelink. It's got cycling 2. And when you cycle, you put a lifelink counter on target creature you control. Now this one I actually like, because a 3 mana 3/3 lifelink, just as the baseline, is not terrible or anything. It helps to survive, has some, you know, base solid stats, and you can cycle it if you don't need it. And I think putting a lifelink counter on a creature can be really good, because lifelink is one of the more powerful keywords, can keep you longer in the game and give you time to look for the cards you need and win the game. So I would give this, I would say, 3 stars, also because the cycling cost is fairly cheap. Next up we got Helica Glider, a Nightmare Squirrel, 3 mana 2/2, and enters the battlefield with your choice of flying counter or first strike counter on it. Now, this is probably a nice card in draft, has some flexibility. In standard, this is too expensive. Once you play, 1 star. Next up we got Checkpoint Officer, 2 mana 1/2 human soldier, and you can tap a target creature for 2 mana. Simply put this way, you have better options. Simply play Lorune Enforcer for 1 mana. You also get a 1/2, and you pay 1 mana to tap target creature with CMC 2 or greater, which is basically the same effect here, because you won't really tap a creature with CMC 1 because they won't be a threat to you. And that's why, just because you actually have 2 better options already in the game, which is Lorune Enforcer and the card from Throne of Eldraine, where you can also tap any creature for 2 mana, but has the adventure of killing a creature with a power 4 or greater. So down by this card you have better options, and that's why I give this 1 star. Next up we got Reptillian Mirroring, an enchantment in red for 3 mana, and whenever you cycle a card, you may have Reptillian Mirroring become a 5/4 dinosaur creature with trample and haste in addition to its other types until end of turn. I think that's actually a real powerful card. You pay 3 mana, which is, I think, a very fair amount to pay this. And if you play a deck around cycle, you get a 5/4 with trample and haste, so it can even attack the same turn it comes down, which is excellent. And I think this can be a viable card in cycle decks to come, and that's why I give this 3 stars. Next up we got Heartless Act. It's a 2 mana instant in black, and you choose 1. You destroy target creature with no counters on it, or you remove up to 3 counters from target creature. Now this is an absolute excellent card. I give this 4 stars, because I don't think so that the meta is going to be that counter heavy. So most of the time this is going to be an instant 2 mana destroy any creature, which is really good. I would compare this card with the 2 mana instant from Dominaria, where you could destroy target non-legendary creature. And I actually think that this kind of restriction is less restrictive even. And even if you can destroy a creature, you can remove counters from it, so weaken it, maybe use it as a combat trick. Your opponent has a creature with +1/+1 counters on it. You deal damage in the combat and then use the second ability to finish this off. So excellent card, I give this 4 stars. Next up we've got Magma Charger. 4 mana Dinosaur in red, and when it attacks, if it doesn't have first strike, you put a first strike counter on it. And then when it attacks, if it already has first strike, it gets double strike until end of turn. So the way this card works is you play it for 4 mana, it's just a plain 3/3. Then the first time it attacks, you get the first strike counter. And basically the turn after, it now has first strike because of that first strike counter. When it then attacks, it gets double strike until end of turn. But I don't think that's worth it. So in the first turn, when you can attack for 4 mana, it's a 3/3 first strike, which I don't think is worth it. At 4 mana, you can do better things. And then the double strike is actually interesting, but it comes only 2 turns after, so I doubt that this creature will still be on the board at that time. And but it's a dinosaur, you could mutate it. I'm not sure about it. I give this 2 stars just because I think first strike counters are really powerful. So maybe there's a world where you can use this, but actually I don't think so. Next up we got Fight as 1, a 1-mana instant white. Choose one or both. Target human creature you control gets +1/+1 and indestructible end of turn. Or you get same effect for non-human creatures. I think this is actually a really efficient card. If played in the right deck, you can give 2 creatures +1/+1 each and indestructible until end of turn. So obviously you want to play this probably in aggressive decks. However, at a baseline, this will always be give a creature +1/+1 indestructible until end of turn, which I would say is never bad. And for me, the only question here is are there better options? For example, would you rather have this or would you rather have a God's Willing? So I still think this card is really nice though. And I think you can even just play this card for the one of the effects. You don't necessarily need both effects to make this card viable. So I'm actually tempted to give this card 4 stars. However, since there are other alternatives in a game, I would give this 3 stars. But I think it's a card that you can definitely think about putting into your deck. Next up, we've got Hornbash Mentor, 3 mana 3/3 human warrior. When it enters the battlefield, you put a trample card on target non-human creature you control. So, as you go through these previews, you might get the feeling for that we always have these humans who give a specific counter to non-human creatures. And then here for 3 mana, you can put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control with trample. Now, as I've seen before, there's this tendency that with humans, which give +1/+1 counters to other creatures or all creatures that have a certain keyword. However, I think in this case, this is actually not that great because if you have creatures with trample, you want them to be really big, and I think it's just less likely that in a deck where you have a lot of trample, you will have a white board. I don't think that's very probable. And this activated ability works best if you have a white board. So that being said, this would still be a 3/3 and you can give a trample counter to a non-human creature, but I don't think this is going to see play, so I give it 2 stars. Next up we have Parcelbeast, 4 mana 2/4 elemental beast. And you can mutate for 2 mana in similar colors. So again, mutate tends to be very expensive. This is a mutate ability for 2. So that's already very positive. And then the creature itself, you can pay 1, tap it, look at the top card of your library. If it's a land card, you may put it onto battlefield. And if you don't put a card onto battlefield, you may put it into your hand. So on activate ability, you have basically a Risen Reef ability, with the small distinction that the land card comes onto the battlefield untapped, which is real nice. Or in other cases, it's just 1 mana draw a card. And since you can mutate this on other creatures, I think that's very valuable. And for 2 mana, you can also activate and mutate ability, right? So that's already good. And also, this is an elemental beast, so even if you play it as a 4 mana to 4, in an elemental deck you can have, you know, your Risen Reef triggers and so on and so forth. So, because of the fact that it has a cheap mutate ability, the activate ability is pretty good, and that is an elemental. I would give this 3 stars, but with a strong tendency to 4 stars. Next up, we've got Joyous Skybonder, a 3 mana 2/2 flyer, human wizard in Azorius colors. And creatures you control flying have spells your opponents cast. The target's creature costs 2 more to cast. I would give this 3 stars because I can see this being played in Azorius Flyers deck. However, I would put this card into the sideboard and not into the main deck, because my experience with Azorius Flyers has been that at 3 mana you want to play other stuff, but if you face an opponent's deck which has a lot of removal or targeted removal, this can be a nice sideboard card, so that's why I give this 3 stars. And we're almost through with the cards. This is number 20. It's Essence Symbiont, 2 mana 2/2 beast in green. And whenever a creature you control mutates, put a +1/+1 counter on the creature and you gain 2 life. I think if it turns out that mutate decks might be a little slower, a little mid-rangey, this could be a cool card to you know, get to that mid-game where you can start, you know, getting your play off the ground. And you know, +1/+1 counter, gaining 2 life, helps you build your creatures, helps you stabilize or stay alive. And it's a nice little creature. Is it going to be very significant in the matter? Probably not. But I think there is some potential, and that's why I give this card 3 stars basically. And the last card here is a juicy one. It's Weaponize the Monsters. It's a 1 mana enchantment in red, and has the activated ability you can pay 2 generic mana and sacrifice a creature, and Weaponize the Monsters deals 2 damage to any target. I think that this enchantment combined with Bastion of Remembrance, the new enchantment in black, for 3 mana, which deals 1 damage to your opponent and you gain 1 life whenever you sacrifice a creature. Those 2 enchantments combined in an aggressive, sacrifice-oriented Rakdos deck could really make a great aggressive deck. Maybe you throw in, you know, your Judas in there or your Ayaras and so on, and just drain you out your opponent really fast with, you know, some tokens that you sacrifice. And I think that 2 mana to deal 2 damage to any target, and it's 2 generic mana, is also a fair rate. You're going to be sacrificing cheap creatures with that. So I think really good card actually. And it's very restricted in its use though, so I would give this 3 stars, but also with a strong tendency to 4 stars. And there you go, folks. These were the 21 cards revealed on April 7th. I always reveal all the cards from the day before. So stay tuned for more Ikoria spoilers tomorrow. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys on next video.